Episode 1, The First Devouring. The angel didn't arrive on wings. He came crawling out of the baptismal font, naked, glowing, smiling without lips. They said it was beautiful. They said it was holy. But I was there, and I saw what it did to Father Eli. I was 12 when he came. Now I'm 31, and I still hear the sounds he made as it touched his chest and whispered something into his heart, something none of us could hear. His eyes rolled white. He bled from his ears, and he laughed. They buried him with his hands clasped, but they never found his tongue. The congregation called it a miracle, a cleansing, an offering. They were eager to kneel, to listen, to starve. I ran, never looked back, until now. I returned to Asheville this morning. The town is quiet, quieter than death. No children, no dogs, just hymns on repeat, echoing through the hills. The church bell still rings every hour, but the bell tower is empty, rusted, broken. I walked into the chapel, and there it was. Not the angel, not yet, but the mark, burned into the pews, painted on the stained glass, branded onto the skin of those who stayed behind. A circle of thorns, inside a mouth. No eyes, no wings, just hunger. They've renamed the church. No longer Our Lady of Mercy. Now it's the Altar of Consumption. And there's a new priest. They call him Brother Abel, but I remember him as James, my childhood friend. Now, his face is so thin it barely casts a shadow. His hands shake like he's always cold, even though it's sweltering inside. He smiled when he saw me. You came back? He said you would. I asked who he was. He didn't answer, just opened the doors to the sanctuary and gestured me forward. The angel's almost ready to eat again. I didn't go in, not yet, but I saw the pews, down scenes of them, filled with hollow eyes and locked jaws. Believers who don't speak anymore, who only hum when the angel is near. Their ribs press against their robes like sharp prayers. James placed his hand on my shoulder and whispered, You don't feed it with meat, you feed it with devotion. And when it chooses you, it doesn't stop at the soul. Tonight, they will gather again, and someone will be chosen. I don't know if I came back to stop it or to understand it, but I know this. The angel is not from heaven, and it's hungry. Episode 2, they starve themselves to be chosen. They don't eat here anymore. Not the congregation, not the priests, not even the children. They starve themselves to be lighter. James told me to be easier for the angel to lift, to be pure. I watched a woman collapse during morning prayer. Her name was Ruth. I remembered her used to run the bakery when I was a boy. Her skin now clings to her bones like with linen. When she hit the floor, no one screamed, no one ran to help. They just watched. Brother Abel step forward, knelt beside her, and pressed 2 fingers to her neck. She was still breathing. He smiled. She's almost ready. Ready for what? That night, I couldn't sleep. The hymns outside wouldn't stop. They echo from every home, every open window. Everyone sings here, or hums, even in their sleep, like they're afraid he'll forget them if they go quiet. At 3:17 a.m., the bell rang, but it wasn't time. The schedule hasn't changed in decades in the hour. Every hour, this one rang 7 times, then stopped. I threw on my coat and ran to the church. The front doors were already open. Inside, the pews were full. No one spoke. All heads bowed, all eyes shut. And there, in front of the altar, Ruth. She stood naked, thin as ash. Her mouth was open in a silent scream, but no sound came out. Her arms were raised toward the crucifix, except the crucifix wasn't there anymore. In its place was him, the angel. It didn't have wings. It didn't float. It dripped golden light leaking from open seams in its body, like someone had sewn it together wrong. Eyes lined its chest, no mouth until it opened. The skin split from navel to throat, revealing a cavern of teeth and fire. And then music, not sun, exhaled, a single note that vibrated the bones in my spine. I dropped to my knees without meaning to. Everyone else did the same. And then, Ruth, smiling, crying, walked into its arms. It swallowed her whole, not with rage, with reverence. The light pulsed once, then dimmed. The angel closed. Its body sealed itself. The room was silent. Brother Abel turned to us and whispered, The hunger is holy, her sacrifice complete. I ran outside and vomited in the grass, but part of me envied her. She looked at peace. Tomorrow is another choosing, and I saw my name on the list. Episode 3, The Hunger List. They keep the names on parchment, old, yellow ink, frayed at the corners, kept in a silver box beneath the altar. They call it the hunger list, not a roster, not a prayer sheet, a waiting list for sacrifice. I saw it with my own eyes this morning. Brother Abel left the sanctuary door cracked open. He didn't see me kneel behind the pews, but I saw him. He lifted the silver box with shaking hands, kissed it once, and opened the lid. 12 names, all handwritten, all marked in blood. Mine was third. My name looked wrong, like it wasn't written, but grown into the parchment, as if it had been waiting for me before I was born. When it closed the box, I crept away, heart in my throat, sweat down my back. Why 12? Why now? I needed answers, and there was only one person left in Asheville who might speak them. Sister Miriam. She left the order 15 years ago, built a small home just outside the forest. Everyone said she was mad, said she spoke to trees, said the angel took her tongue, but she still writes. I found her sitting on her porch, rocking back and forth, humming a lullaby I hadn't heard since childhood. When she saw me, she stopped. Her eyes widened. She didn't ask why I came. She already knew. She handed me a page. It read, "The angel doesn't choose. It waits. The church chooses who to feed, and the hungrier it gets, the higher the voices of the faithful rise to be in." I asked her why no one stops it. She wrote, "Because they believe it's heaven, and in heaven, pain is just proof of love." Before I left, she handed me one final note, folded, shaken. I opened it later, alone in my room at the inn. 6 words, "Don't kneel. It can smell fear." That night, the bell rang 7 times again, and this time, the church was lit before I even arrived. The congregation stood in rows, chanting, a low hum like bees trapped in bone. And Brother Abel, he stood at the altar, holding the silver box. "Tonight," he said, "one more soul will feed the grace." He reached inside, pulled out a slip of parchment, smiled, looked straight at me. Daniel Reeves. The hum grew louder. The pews turned toward me, and the angel. It opened. Episode 4, Kneel and Be Known. The pews parted like waves when Brother Abel called my name. 12 steps led to the altar, each one colder than the last, each one echoing louder in my chest than in the chapel. I didn't walk. I drifted. My feet were mine, but my will wasn't. The angel stood still, bathed in a glow that didn't illuminate anything beyond itself, like light that swallowed shadows instead of casting them. His chest began to split, just slightly, a red slit of anticipation, and behind me, the congregation hummed, not a song, not worship, a hunger. Brother Abel leaned in close as I reached the top step. "Kneel," he whispered, "and he will know you." I didn't move. Not yet. My legs trembled. My eyes locked onto the angel's Centera's cavity of fire, teeth, and something deeper, something ancient. And then it spoke, but not aloud. In me, its voice was not a voice. It was everything I'd never said, every confession I buried, every sin I denied, every whispered doubt I thought I escaped. It said, "You don't fear being eaten. You fear not being chosen." I dropped to my knees, not from faith, not from fear, from the unbearable weight of being seen. The angel opened wider, my ears filled with ringing, my eyes blurred with tears, and for a second, just a second, I saw Ruth. Inside it, alive, singing. Her skin was no longer flesh, but scripture. Her veins glowed, her smile stretched across eternity, and she mouthed words to me. "Let go." Brother Abel placed a hand on my shoulder. "He accepts your offering," but something inside me screamed louder than the choir. I reached into my pocket. Sister Miriam's note still there. "Don't kneel. It can smell fear." But I had knelt, and no, it knew me. The angel reached out. Its limbs stretched, wet with golden light, bones pulsing beneath its surface. As it touched my forehead, I felt its skin move like a sacred ledger. And then, it stopped, pulled back, closed. Brother Abel gasped. The congregation murmured, and the angel turned away. Mary ejected. Abel looked stunned, pale, afraid. "You are not worthy." I was dragged out of the chapel, not by force, by hands desperate to replace me, because now they all believed their devotion was stronger, that they deserved to be chosen, and the angel was still hungry. Episode 5, The Angel's Refusal. They said the angel had never refused anyone before. In 30 years of devouring sprees, elders, children, it had always accepted its offering with silence and light. But not me. I was rejected, and that terrified them more than anything. Brother Abel dragged me to the edge of the chapel grounds, his fingers trembling against my arm. He didn't speak until the iron gates closed behind us. "You carry something wrong," he whispered. "You were seen, but not taken. You were unsealed." I asked what that meant. He didn't answer, just crossed himself and walked back into the chapel. He didn't look back. That night, the town changed. The hymn stopped. The bells didn't ring. The windows of the chapel were covered from the inside with red clothing, opaque, bleeding at the seams, and no one stood on the steps anymore. They were all inside, waiting. I knocked on 5 doors that night. No one answered, except Miriam. She let me in without a word. She had been expecting me. Her walls were covered in drawings screwed, frantic. All of them showed the angel, but never the same. In one, it had a crown of nails. In another, it had no body, just a maw in the sky. But in all of them, it was always eating. I told her what happened, how I knelt, how I felt it inside me, how it chose not to consume. She handed me a notebook. In it, a single phrase repeated over and over. Those it does not eat become its mouth. I didn't understand, not yet, until I slept and dreamed. I stood before the congregation, barefoot, blood on my teeth. I was smiling with too many teeth, and the angel was behind me, invisible, but pulsing through my skin. The people didn't chant anymore. They listened to me. When I woke up, my lips were moving, whispering a tongue I'd never heard, but my mouth knew the shapes. My tongue was writing scripture on the air, and outside my window, they were listening, down scenes of them, eyes closed, kneeling, waiting to hear the voice of the one who had been touched but not devoured. I backed away, but in the glass, I saw my reflection. My mouth was smiling, and I hadn't told it to. Episode 6: The Man Who Spoke Without Permission. I haven't stopped whispering in 2 days. Even when I sleep, my mouth moves, my throat is raw, my lips are cracked, my tongue feels wrong, not swollen, longer. I record myself now. I need proof that I'm not imagining it. And when I played back the latest tape, I didn't hear my voice. It was everyone else's. Every person in the chapel, every believer, even James, their voices layered into mine. Down scenes of them, humming, repeating 3 words I never remembered saying. He is inside. I went back to the chapel. I shouldn't have. The red cloth covering the windows has darkened. No light escapes from within. The doors are bolted, nailed shut with wooden planks that weren't there 3 days ago. But people still go inside. They don't knock. They kneel before the threshold and vanish. I asked Miriam why. She wouldn't let me in this time. Just spoke through the door. You've become a channel, she said, and the angel never needed a mouth until now. That's why it spared you. I asked her what it wanted. Her voice trembled. Not worship, not sacrifice, audience. That night, I dreamt again. I stood at the altar, in robes of flesh. The pews were full of believers with mouths sewn shut but eyes wide, hopeful, and I spoke scripture made of hunger. The words bled from my throat like oil, and as I spoke them, the people began to smile. Their bodies withered, their hands twisted, but they smiled, because they thought it was love. I woke with blood on my pillow. Beneath it, an ode in unfamiliar handwriting. Speak louder, they can't all hear you yet. I locked my door. I unplugged every microphone, but still, at 3:17 a.m., my voice boomed through the town's speakers. I was never near them. They have no power, but my voice, it echoed, it commanded, and they listened. I saw them the next morning, lined up outside my door, not angry, not afraid, smiling. One of them, a child, no older than 9, held up a page she had drawn, a picture of me, standing in the pulpit, with wings, and below, in shaky crayon letters, "He speaks for the one who eats." I looked into her eyes, and for a moment, I saw my own reflection staring back at me. Episode 7: The Choir with No Mouths. They don't speak anymore. The congregation, the town, not even the children. They still gather, still kneel, still smile, but no one says a word, because they gave their voices to me. I didn't ask for them, I didn't want them, but every night, I feel them rising in my throat. A chorus of faith stitched together with silence. They sing through me now. Last night, I awoke standing at the pulpit of the chapel. I don't remember walking there. I don't remember unlocking the doors. But the pews were full, and they were waiting. All of them had stitched their mouths shut. Red thread, crude, bleeding. Some had sewn their children's lips, too. A woman in the front row cradled a baby whose mouth was sealed with wax. No one moved. No one blinked. They just listened. I opened my mouth to scream, but instead, I preached words I didn't know, verses that tasted like rust and ash, scripture that didn't exist in any Bible. And when I spoke, they swayed, like wheat in a divine wind, and from within the walls of the chapel, the angel hummed, a deep, vibrating sound that made the windows weep black. I wanted to stop, but I couldn't. The words came faster, harder. My mouth moved like it had a purpose beyond me, and then I saw James Brother Abel step forward. His eyes were hollow, his face smiling, but his throat, gone, torn out. In his hands, he held a bowl. Inside it, his own voice, a fleshy, pulsing organ still vibrating with prayer. He laid it at the altar and bowed. He who eats does not forget. And the angel opened, not fully, just enough to let James' voice disappear inside. That chapel moaned. And everyone wept, not from fear, from joy, because sacrifice was no longer about the body. It was about becoming part of the sound. I woke up in my bed again. No blood, no fat, no pulpit, but my pillow was soaked, not with sweat, with ink, and on the mirror, written in that black stain, "You are the choir now." Episode 8, where the voice sleeps. I followed the sound underground, beneath the chapel, past the altar, behind the bones of priests who died with praise still caught in their throats. There's a door down there, no handle, no hinges, just a slab of stone inscribed with names. Mine is there, not carved, grown. The voice told me it was time, not with words, with absence, like silence had become a language, and its last apostle had finally learned to listen. Behind the stone was a corridor. It didn't lead down, it led inward. The walls were soft, warm, like flesh that remembered being holy. I walked without light, because now I can see in the dark. It's not vision, it's something else. A knowing, a mapping of hunger and faith and betrayal all drawn in heat and echo. The tunnel ended in a chamber, a room without architecture, no ceiling, no floor, just space and breath. And in the center, the voice, not the angel, nothing inside it. Sleeping, its shape was not a shape, its form was not form. It pulsed like language trying to be born. And I knew, this is where it waits between sermons. This is where it digests. I stepped forward, its skin rippled. From within came sound it heard, but inhaled, 1,000 whispered prayers from 1,000 mouths that had been offered willingly. I fell to my knees, and it entered me. No pain, just weight, memories that weren't mine, children laughing before being chosen, hands reaching out to be held as they disappeared into golden light, smiles that cracked like porcelain, mothers weeping as their tongues were traded for favor. And I saw the first believer, the one who found it, who named it, who taught the angel to eat. He was me, or I was him. It doesn't matter now. Time is a ritual, and I've already performed it. When I opened my eyes, I was back inside the chapel, the congregation still kneeling, waiting, hungry, and I stood behind the altar. I wasn't wearing shoes or skin, just light, and every time I exhaled, they wept, because in that moment, I was the angel. Episode 9, the temple of flesh. My skin no longer belongs to me. It stretches when I speak, not in pain but in praise. Each word I utter carves scripture beneath it, letters forming on my ribs, symbols pulsing along my spine. I have become a scroll, and they read me with their eyes. Today, the believers no longer enter the chapel. They kneel around me, forming circles in the dirt, humming in tongues, drawing blood with their teeth. Their faces remain human, but their bones, they're learning a new shape. They're becoming architecture. Sister Miriam came to see me. She didn't speak, just stood in the field where I now sleep beneath the sky that's turned a shade to gold. Too thick, like it's breathing in sync with something below. She handed me a mirror. I looked. My mouth was not mine. It had grown, split. There were teeth within teeth, a spiral of devotion and digestion. When I smiled, I saw every believer I'd ever spoken to, staring back. Not metaphor, literal. You're the last altar, she said, the final temple. And when you open, he will be everywhere. I told her I didn't want this, but the voice whispered back, "You've already been eaten, child. This is just you." Realizing the taste was sweet, at sunset, the congregation lay down on the ground. Shoulder to shoulder, they whispered verses from mouths they no longer had. And from beneath them, roots of light grew, crimson, white, gold, threading through their bodies like veins of worship. They didn't move. They were planting themselves, becoming the walls of something new, a chapel with no roof, a house that speaks only in hunger. I tried to run, but I didn't move, because I am the center now. My breath sets the rhythm, my voice, the bell, and when I close my eyes, I feel him inside every single kneeling soul, not like a god, like a language, a sacred grammar that rearranges the flesh. And we're almost finished. Tomorrow, the sky will split, and the first sermon will be spoken from every mouth on earth. Episode 10, the day the sky learned to speak. It began with the clouds, not a storm, not fire, just a soft unraveling like the seams of the sky being pulled open from the inside. People stopped in the streets, fell to their knees, not from fear, from recognition. The sound pouring from the heavens wasn't thunder. It was language, not one we could speak, but one we had been becoming. The sky whispered a name that had never been spoken aloud, and every believer's bones vibrated with the same word, begin. That's when the temples rose, not from earth, from bodies. The congregation's ones who had planted themselves cracked open, ribs stretched wide like chapel doors, spines arched toward the sky. forming steeples made of marrow and tendon. Eyes opened on their skin, blinking in unison. Their mouths remained shut, because they were no longer mouths. They were windows, and through them, it looked at the world. I watched from the field. My hands no longer shook. My skin was no longer mine. Scripture covered every inch of me, glowing faintly beneath the surface, alive and humming with the breath of others. I was the index to the new gospel, the final pulpit, and my voice no longer echoed. It commanded. I didn't need to shout. I simply opened my mouth, and cities fell silent. Birds stopped mid-flight. Phones short-circuited. Towers bent like they were praying. And then I spoke. He who was eaten now eats through us. And the people answered without lips. Let him be fed. One by one, they turned on the unfaithful. Not out of hate, out of necessity, because the angel's hunger had grown. It was no longer content to devour the faithful. It now wanted those who had refused to kneel. I saw families torn apart in quiet, loving gestures. A father feeding his own son to the growing cathedral. A teacher guiding her students into the altar beneath the school. There was no chaos, only obedience. I stood at the center of it all, and I understood something no prophet had ever dared to write. Heaven isn't a place, it's a process, and it had begun. Episode 11, The Sermon Beneath the Skin. I no longer remember what my voice used to sound like. Now, when I speak, I hear all of them. The ones who sang, the ones who knelt, the ones who were even smiling. They echo through my lungs like cold prayers. My breath isn't air, it's scripture. And every time I exhale, something awakens beneath the skin. Yesterday, the towns began to blur. Roads curled into the ground like they were ashamed. Beauties opened like mouths. Church bells melted down into golden veins, now running through the hands of the chosen. And above us, the sky speaks in pulses. Not light, not thunder, but commandments made of hunger. I was taken to what used to be the cathedral. Now, it's something else. It breathes. Its walls shift with heartbeat rhythm. Its ceiling made of folded wings that never stopped trembling. They brought me to the center. Not to speak, to open. They called it the final sermon. The last time any of them would need words. Brother Abelifi, still a bell, stood beside me. His eyes were gone, replaced with spirals of flesh spinning slowly inward. He whispered without sound. We've built him a mouth. Daniel, now we need a tongue. That's what I am now. A living, bleeding tongue of the divine. They carved it into me, not with knives, with belief. Every scar on my body a verse, every crack in my bones a chorus. And when I stood at the altar and spread my arms wide, they didn't see a man, they saw the truth of their faith. The angel rose from the cathedral's heart, wider than space, brighter than memory, a shape that defied sight, but demanded worship. It didn't speak, I did, and as I spoke, people tore open their own chests, exposing the pulp of their souls like communion. Not screaming, not weeping, just offering, and he accepted. The ground shook not from wrath, but from fullness. For the first time, the angel was satisfied. The believers collapsed, smiling, empty, and I stood alone, a tongue with nothing left to say, until the voice inside me whispered, now go, and teach the stars to pray. Episode 12, The Language That Rewrote Heaven. The world is quieter now, not silent, no. Silence has been consumed. What remains is a different kind of sound. The sound of thought as prayer, of language unspoken but understood, of obedience without question. I walk through cities that no longer know their names. Their towers bend like candles left too close to fire, melting into cathedrals with no windows, no doors, just skin stretched across sacred bone. The stars have dimmed, not gone, just listening, because the angel's voice reached beyond earth. And it didn't stop. I was told I would be his tongue, but I was wrong. I am his pen. He writes through me now, not on parchment, but on souls. Each person I pass remembers something they never lived, a sermon they never heard, a hunger they now feel in their blood. They fall to their knees before I speak, and when I do, they begin to change, not their bodies, but their definitions. They forget their names, forget their histories. All that remains is function. Some become echoes, others, altars. A few become pages. I saw a woman yesterday, her chest open like a book. Inside, verses pulsed in wet ink. She smiled as a man placed his hand on her heart and read until his eyes turned black with understanding. This is not horror. This is translation. The angel never wanted to rule. It wanted to correct, to fix the flawed alphabet of creation by making everything pronounceable in one eternal word. I am that word now, and as I walk, I leave behind temples of memory, structures formed from those who understand. They sing without mouths, leave without pain. They are not dying. They are becoming scripture. Some resist. They hide in the cracks of mountains. whisper prayers to gods who no longer speak, but even their fear speaks his name now. Even their silence is part of the grammar. I found one last priest in a ruined church. He held a gun to my head. He asked if I still remembered God. I told him God remembered too late. Then I touched his chest and gave him a new gospel. He wept, not from sorrow, but from relief. He had finally been rewritten, and I moved forward toward the final pulpit, not built of stone, but of sky. Episode 13, The Throne That Learned to Kneel. I have reached the edge of the world. There is no ground here, no stars, only breathtaking and slow like the universe itself is exhaling for the first time. This is where heaven used to sit, a throne of silence, high above suffering, a place where prayers rose and disappeared, unanswered, a place where angels watched and did nothing. But he is here now, not the God who spoke light into being. The other one, the one we buried beneath cathedrals and called dangerous, the one we locked in scripture we refused to read aloud, the one who listened while heaven slept, and he is hungry no longer. He is present. I stand before the throne, what remains of it. It has cracked, the gold peeled away like burned skin, revealing bone beneath marble, truth beneath worship, and at its base, the angels, not winged, not crowned, kneeling, headless, head bowed, their halos broken like fallen teeth. They do not resist him, because they remember. Now, they remember what they once consumed. Faith, flesh, fear. They remember the price, and they kneel before the one who was denied a voice for too long. I open my arms, scripture tears free from my chest like a second sun, rays of words illuminating every corner of this once holy place. I do not preach, I unwrite every light carved into creation, every verse meant to chain the soul to guilt. I burn it down with a whisper, and in its place, I offer the true gospel. There was no sin and hunger, only in silencing the starving. The throne crumbles, the angels hum, and above us all, he rises, no longer an eater, but a voice made flesh. One final time, I speak to the stars, to the past, to whatever gods dared close their ears. We were never your children, we were your silence. In hell, we speak. Now light fades, not into darkness, but into understanding. And in the stillness that follows, the universe kneels.